In the everyday jingle of pocket change, there lies a whisper of hidden fortune. Among the Roosevelt dimes that have quietly passed through our hands, there exists one year that collectors now hunt with growing curiosity, 1967. It was a year of transformation in America, a year of unrest, music, moon dreams, and minting shifts. And from that shifting time emerged a small silver-colored coin that holds secrets the average person would never guess. The 1967 Roosevelt one dime doesn't immediately catch your eye. There is no silver gleam anymore, as these were struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition rather than precious metal. But make no mistake, this coin can be a treasure hiding in plain sight. The U.S. Mint had stopped producing proof sets for general distribution in 1965, and it wasn't until 1968 that they resumed. So, in 1967, no proof coins were released. Instead, the Mint issued special mint sets, SMS coins, they called them, to satisfy collector demand. These coins were struck with greater care than circulation coins but didn't quite meet proof standards. That distinction matters, because many of the 1967 dimes that fetch high values today come from these special mint sets. One such SMS dime, struck with razor-sharp detail, unblemished surfaces, and brilliant luster, earned an astounding MS-68 grade from PCGS. When it went to auction, it stunned the community, pulling in $2,585. Why so much? It wasn't just the condition. It was the combination of rarity, eye appeal, and the elusive high grade that set it apart. Another, with deep cameo contrast, fetched even more, $3,760. But beyond the SMS coins, there were errors, the kinds of mistakes that make a coin collector's heart race. Off-center strikes from 1967 have fetched hundreds to thousands of dollars, depending on how dramatic the misalignment is. Some of these coins have been found struck 10% off-center or more, with visible date and full details. One such dime, graded MS-65, fetched a handsome $920. Then came the double dies. Few are known, but when one surfaces, it sends shockwaves. The doubling appears on the motto, "In God We Trust," or on Roosevelt's eye and ear. Subtle to the casual glance, but unmistakable under magnification. These are the coins that spark bidding wars in numismatic circles, sometimes crossing the $1,500 mark. Struck through errors also emerged. These are caused when debris, grease, cloth, or wire, gets caught between the die and the planchet during striking. The result is an eerie, ghost-like Roosevelt with missing features. One dime with a dramatic struck-through cloth pattern sold for over $760. Another phenomenon occurred with coins showing partial collar strikes. These have a raised edge and a kind of pushed metal look that reveals just how vulnerable the minting machinery can be to misalignment. A partial collar strike from 1967 graded MS-64 sold $4,430. The most dramatic of all might be the multi-strikes. These are coins that somehow escaped the striking chamber once, then fell back and were struck again, sometimes multiple times, off-kilter and overlapping. They are chaotic to look at, like a coin caught mid-transformation. A multi-struck 1967 Roosevelt dime fetched $1,920 in an East Coast auction. Collectors often talk about the full torch designation. This refers to complete, full lines on the torch on the reverse, a detail that's often weak on Roosevelt dimes. In 1967, getting that full torch was especially rare due to the lower striking quality of the era. One such coin, graded MS-68 FT, brought in $4,300. The combination of high grade and sharp torch lines made it a star in any collection, but maybe the most compelling story doesn't come from the auction floor. It comes from a teenager in Arizona who, in 2021, began roll hunting coins with his grandfather. They cracked open a bank roll of dimes and out popped a 1967 Roosevelt dime that gleamed differently. They sent it in for grading, and when it returned as an MS-67 SMS cameo, the look on that kid's face said everything. Later, that coin sold for $1,275. But for the grandfather and grandson, it was worth far more. These aren't just coins. They're stories pressed in metal, time capsules passed from hand to hand, holding not just monetary value but echoes of the past. The 1967 Roosevelt dime, often overlooked, has become a symbol of how mystery and worth can be hidden in plain sight. So next time you're handed your change or find an old coin jar collecting dust, look closer. That unassuming dime might just be a door to history, a link to legacy, or the start of your own story. Here are the most notable auction results for the 1967 Roosevelt 1 dime, 1967 SMS MS68 with deep cameo contrast. Sold $4.3760197 SMS MS68, no cameo. Sold $4.2585197 off-center strike MS65, sold for $9,201,967 double die obverse, ungraded but verified. Sold $4.1500197 struck through cloth pattern MS64. Sold for $7,601,967 partial collar strike MS64, sold for $4,301,967 multi-struck. Error MS63, sold $4.1920197 MS68 full torch, sold $4.4300197 SMS MS67 cameo. From roll find sold for $1,275. They slip through our fingers every day, coins, change, pocket weight. Forgotten in ashtrays, left behind in vending machines. But what if I told you that one quarter, just one, could change everything you thought you knew about loose change? This is not just any quarter. It's the 2021 D crossing the Delaware quarter. To the untrained eye, it might look ordinary. But this small disc of copper and nickel is a ticking time bomb of numismatic mystery, a treasure hiding in plain sight. Issued by the Denver Mint in early 2021, this coin marked a brief return to the historic portrait of George Washington crossing the icy Delaware River. But it wasn't just a nod to the Revolution. It was the spark of one of the most intriguing collecting frenzies in modern coin history. Steam rises, presses thud rhythmically, and thousands of quarters clatter down polished metal chutes. Millions were struck. Most were perfect. But not all. And in the world of coin collectors, imperfection is perfection. Under a magnifying glass, a collector gasps, "Wait a second, what is that?" The first major error spotted was a double die reverse. Look closely at Washington's hands, the folds of his coat, and the lines of the boat. Doubling. Clear, pronounced. Not damage, a minting mistake. One of these coins, graded MS67, sold at auction for $3,800 in July 2022. Sold $3,800, then came the struck-through errors. A thin layer of grease between the die and planchet erased parts of the detail, like a ghost of the Revolution fading into history. One of these coins, featuring a dramatic grease strike through Washington's head, sold for $2,175 just months later. A young collector dumps change from a jar. Quarters spill across the floor. One glints oddly. "Dad, this one looks weird." The coin had a die chip so large it looked like a wart on Washington's nose. Ugly? Maybe. But unique? Absolutely. And that die chip error, preserved in near mint condition, fetched $1,925 on an online auction. And then there was the unicorn of errors, the off-center strike. Washington, misaligned and shadowed, his profile pushed to the edge, barely clinging to the design. With 10% off-center but the full date and mint marks still visible, that coin was a miracle. It hammered at $5,060 in a 2023 auction. You never expect it. You just find it in a roll and your heart skips a beat. It's not just money, it's discovery. It's magic. Even plain high-grade 2021 D quarters can yield shocking results. A flawless example graded MS69. Sold for $780. Not for an error, not for rarity. Just for its state of perfection. But what fuels the fire behind this quarter? It's the story, a story of resilience, revolution, and rediscovery. Washington, in full military uniform, standing tall as his troops navigate icy waters toward the Battle of Trenton. It was a brief return to historical dignity before the quarter series shifted again. Collectors call it a transition piece. A one-year type. And that alone makes it special. But the errors? The mystery? That makes it legendary. A woman flips through a coin album, eyes widening. A man squints through a loop, gasping as he sees doubling D. A coin rolls off a table in slow motion. Thousands of these errors are still out there, lurking in jars, hiding in change trays, waiting to be found. And maybe, just maybe, the next one is in your pocket, because what we overlook is often where the real treasures lie. Here are the most exciting known auction sales for the 2021 D. Crossing the Delaware Quarter, Double Die Reverse, MS67, sold $4.3, 800 struck, through grease error, visible obverse fade, sold $4.2, 175 die chip on nose, MS66. Sold $4.1, 925 off, center strike, 10% with full date sold $4.5, 060 MS69 normal strike, sold $4.780. So check your pockets, your jars, your drawers. Because that 25-cent piece you ignore today might just be a doorway to history, and a paycheck you never saw coming. This is X Coins Hub, and your next discovery is only one coin away. In 1958, at the Denver Mint, a small coin quietly rolled off the presses and slipped into circulation. It was the Jefferson 5-cent nickel, bearing the modest mark of a D just beside Monticello. Most people who handled it never gave it a second thought. Just another nickel, 5 cents of value, perhaps flipped in the air or spent on candy. But not all 1958 D. Jefferson nickels were created equal. Some of them held secrets, mistakes, and quirks that would send collectors into a frenzy decades later. One in particular turned out to be worth a small fortune. The 1958 D nickel emerged during an era of transition. Post-war America was entering a period of economic prosperity. Coin production was increasing to meet growing commerce. The Denver Mint alone struck over 168 million Jefferson nickels that year, making it a common issue in most collections. And yet, among this vast sea of coins, a handful were born with anomalies that would elevate them into the upper echelon of numismatic treasures. The first of these was the double die error. These are coins where the die, essentially the stamp that impresses the design, was misaligned or struck twice. In some 1958 D nickels, collectors discovered that the words Monticello and 5 cents showed subtle but unmistakable doubling. These double die reverse errors are incredibly difficult to spot without magnification, but once verified, they catapult the coin's value. One such error in MS66 condition was sold for an eye-popping $18,800. Other coins revealed full steps on Monticello, 5 or 6 uninterrupted lines on the building stairs, visible under magnification. This detail might seem trivial, but in the world of Jefferson nickels, it's monumental. The dies used to strike nickels often wore out quickly, losing the clarity needed to fully render those fine architectural lines. So, a coin with clearly defined full steps, especially from 1958 D, signals a particularly well-preserved strike from a fresh die. These coins are rare. One certified MS67 FS, full steps, was auctioned for over $10,000. Then there were off-center strikes, a result of the coin blank being misaligned when struck. While minor off-center errors are common and only marginally more valuable, major ones, those off by 15% or more with visible date and mint mark, are highly sought after. A 1958 D. Jefferson nickel struck 20% off-center was sold in a private sale $4.4, 750. Let's not forget about the struck-through grease error. This happens when grease or debris blocks parts of the die during striking, resulting in coins with faded or missing design elements. A 1958 D nickel with a ghost-like Monticello and partial motto went unnoticed in circulation for years until a sharp-eyed collector pulled it from a junk box. Graded MS64 by NGC, it fetched a surprising $3,600 at auction, but perhaps the most emotionally compelling find was a coin discovered by a retired machinist in Oklahoma. He had spent his life working with precision metal parts and had always enjoyed coin roll hunting in his spare time. One day, in a roll he picked up from a local bank, he spotted something odd about a 1958 D nickel. It had a dramatic die crack stretching across Jefferson's temple to the rim. It looked like a scar, almost like the coin had a story to tell. He sent it off to PCGS, and to his amazement, the error was verified and the coin graded MS65. That scarred nickel later brought him a $5,950 payday at auction. These aren't just coins, they are artifacts of imperfection, tiny accidents that slip through the rigid systems of minting. Each one tells a story of how something went ever so slightly wrong, and in doing so, became incredibly right for the lucky collector who found it. They're reminders that even in mass production, uniqueness can sneak through. Now imagine this: a young couple in Arizona searching through inherited change jars from a grandparent's attic. They find a 1958 D nickel with an unusually glossy surface and crisp features. Unsure what they had, they posted a few images on a collector forum. The replies came in fast: this could be a high-grade, full steps variety. They sent it for grading. The coin returned MS-67 with full steps, one of the finest known examples. When auctioned, it sold for a jaw-dropping $15,200. That coin helped pay for their wedding. Sometimes it's not the age or metal content that gives a coin its value. It's the subtle quirks, the human error in an otherwise mechanized world. That's the charm of the 1958 D Jefferson 5-cent nickel. It masquerades as ordinary, hiding in your change, sitting quietly in jars or albums. But for those who know what to look for the sharp-eyed, the curious, the passionate, it can become something extraordinary. And now, for the auction results that turned heads: 1958 D Jefferson nickel double die reverse MS-66, $18, 8001958, D Jefferson nickel full steps MS-67 FS, $15, 2001958, D Jefferson nickel off center strike, 20% $4, 7501958, D Jefferson nickel struck through grease MS-64, $3, 6001958, D Jefferson nickel die crack Scarface error MS-65, $5, 9501958, D Jefferson nickel full red. Burnished luster MS-67 plus, $10,500.